Hi there, music fans, and welcome to another one of my videos and Cliff and the Shadows related video this time. I'm still absolutely buzzing from the phone call I got from Bruce Welch a couple of days ago. And yeah, I've been listening to a lot of Shadows stuff, a lot of Cliff and the Shadows stuff, as you can imagine, the last couple of days. So I'm still buzzing from the fact that Bruce Welch actually rang me on my mobile and we had a fantastic conversation. Well, it was fantastic for me. I hope it was enjoyable for him as well. 20-minute conversation, absolute dream come true. So I wanted to do a Bruce related video, and I was thinking, would I do songs written by Bruce, songs produced by Bruce, my favourite Shadows tracks that Bruce wrote, or key moments in the Shadows' career. And then I was thinking key moments in Cliff's career, because I think all the Shadows contribute so much to Cliff's career, but in particular Bruce Welch, and a couple of moments really stand out in the history of music and the history of Cliff and the Shadows. So I thought I'd give you 10 of Bruce Welch's best Cliff Richard moments. So I'm going to start off. These are in no particular order. I'm going to start off with Living Doll. Now I don't know whether everybody knows the story that when Cliff made his first film, Serious Charge, in 1959. Early 1959, he made his first film, and he played Curly Thompson in the movie. And he only had a small little bit part, and there was only 3 songs performed in the movie by Cliff. No Turning Back, Mad About You, and a song called Living Doll, which was kind of it sounded very much like King Creole, kind of that beat, up tempo beat. And Cliff and the Shadows absolutely hated the track. But they forgot to read the small print, and in the small print, it said that there had to be a single released from the movie, and so they didn't want to release Living Doll as it was, and they were putting their heads together to see what they could do with the track. And it was Bruce Welch who grabbed a guitar, sat down, and played it in a fantastic country style, which is the version that we all know and love today. So I always feel like and not so much you got a song credit on it, but it should have said arranged by Bruce Welch somewhere on that record, because that arrangement is the song. That's the number one, and it was Cliff's first big number one, and it's thanks to Bruce Welch. So that's my first big Cliff moment. The second one I have is Please Don't Tease. The following year, 1960, Bruce Welch wrote 2 number ones for Cliff in 1960. As well as having the success of Apache, he actually found the time to write 2 number ones for Cliff. One was Please Don't Tease, and one was I Love You. And yeah, absolutely 2 fantastic songs, 2 Cliff classics, especially Please Don't Tease. I love the fact that at least one of his rock and roll classics was a number 1 hit, and that's thanks to Bruce Welch, and his friend Peter Chester, who wrote that. And I do believe that from the royalties of Please Don't Tease, Bruce went out and bought his first car. So yeah, absolutely fantastic moment in music for Bruce Welch and for Cliff and the Shadows fans. Please Don't Tease and I Love You, both number 1. Now, Cliff had 2 number 1s in 1959 as well, but not by the same writer. And my second Cliff moment is Please Don't Tease and I Love You, both number 1 in 1960. So number 3, I have to give this a mention, Summer Holiday. It was the big movie that Cliff made. It was his 4th movie after he made Serious Charge, Espresso Bongo, The Young Ones, and then from the success of The Young Ones, they made Summer Holiday. And of course, Bruce Welch and Brian Bennett wrote the title song, which was a huge number 1. It's still a huge song. It's still loved today as much as it was back then. And in this movie, or on this soundtrack, Bruce wrote 3 number 1s. He co-wrote 3 number 1s. With Brian Bennett, he wrote Summer Holiday. With Cliff, he wrote Bachelor Boy. And with Hank, he wrote Foot Tapper. So absolute 3 classic number ones all on this album, and Bruce Welch contributed to all three. So that's a big moment as well. And I'm going to follow up the Summer Holiday soundtrack with Wonderful Life, because I think this album, I know I mentioned before, but there's a podcast called We Say Yeah that they're actually doing they're actually going to be doing a review of this album. I think it's at their next podcast. I was meant to do that review, but I wasn't available at the time. Anyway, but I really wanted to actually do it because I actually said to David Ghosty Wills, who does the podcast, I said that Bruce Welch was absolutely on fire on this album. He wrote or co-wrote every single Cliff and the Shadows track on this album, including the title track, which he wrote with Brian Bennett. He wrote On the Beach with Cliff and Hank. He wrote Team for Young Lovers, my favourite Shadows track. And he wrote A Matter of Moments, which is an absolutely beautiful song. And when I was talking to Bruce the other day, I mentioned that I absolutely love that song. And I mentioned that I love this soundtrack, and he couldn't remember the songs that was actually on the soundtrack. So I said I absolutely love A Matter of Moments, and that actually reminded him, because he said he actually wrote that in the Canary Islands while making the film, which was a surprise to me, because I actually thought that the album was recorded before they actually went to Canaries. Because I know Licorice Lockin' is not in the movie, but he actually plays on a good few of the songs, including Team for Young Lovers. So anyway, Matter of Moments, yeah, and the Wonderful Life soundtrack is my next Cliff Bruce moment. So, as everybody knows, the Shadows broke up in 1968, or Bruce left the Shadows in 1968 to concentrate on other things. I think he said at the time that he kind of felt there was nowhere to go. They kind of went full circle, and he started producing other artists and concentrating on his private life. And but before they actually broke up, they wrote some amount of classic tracks for Cliff. Songs like In the Country, especially on the soundtracks for the movies and the pantomimes. Songs like, what was I going to say? The Time Drags By, In the Country, I Could Easily Fall in Love. Just absolute classics. He wrote with Cliff, he wrote Don't Talk to Him. Just some absolute incredible tracks that shaped Cliff's career in the 60s. So we get into the 70s now, and as I said, he started producing people like Olivia Newton-John in the early 70s, and then he joined Hank Marvin and John Farrar for Marvin Welch and Farrar. But then in 1974, he went on tour with Cliff in Japan, and this album came from that, and I absolutely love this album. And that's my next Cliff Bruce moment. Absolutely love this album. Just some absolute classic tracks on it, and Bruce is a big part of this as well. And I forgot to mention this on the phone to him, but I actually love this version of You Lost That Love and Feeling on this, where Bruce does harmonies with Cliff. And of course on the album they do the two big songs they wrote together, Don't Talk to Him and Bachelor Boy. They sing Don't Talk to Him in harmony, and then they do Bachelor Boy as a kind of duet version. And I absolutely love this album. I encourage any Cliff fans to go and seek this album if you're a big Cliff fan like me. You need this album. Absolutely fantastic. So the next big Cliff Bruce moment, I think, has to come in 1976 when Bruce Welch, or 1975 actually, because most of the songs were produced in 1975, but produced Cliff's next album, I'm Nearly Famous. And the story goes that Peter Gormley, Cliff's manager, kind of suggested that if there was somebody who could find the right songs, they could produce Cliff on his next album. So Bruce went and he found a couple of songs for Cliff, I Can't Ask for Anyone Else But You and Missionites. And I believe Cliff, it's kind of debatable. I'm not sure. Bruce says he found Devil Woman, but Cliff, in recent interviews I found, he said that he had that song first. I don't know. It was written by Terry Britton anyway, who's a friend of Cliff's and Bruce, so who knows the real story. But Bruce found a couple of songs and he set out to produce I'm Nearly Famous absolutely fantastic album. We spoke about this album the other day on the phone. In particular, a song that's on it called Lovers, which Bruce absolutely loves on this album. He said Cliff is in absolute perfect voice, and yeah, everything is in tune. As of course, everybody knows that Bruce is a stickler for tuning, and yeah, Cliff actually said in interviews as well that if you're to dissect any of the albums or any of the songs that Bruce Welch produced for Cliff, that you wouldn't be able to find even a cymbal out of tune, because Bruce Welch was he had a kind of fetish for tuning. So yeah, absolutely fantastic album. Features Devil Woman, features Miss Unites, I Can't Ask for Anyone Else But You. He made Cliff sing in falsetto for that song, and Cliff didn't want to, but Bruce Welch got his own way because he's a bit of a hard shell in the recording studio, and he made Cliff sing in falsetto, and I'm sure Cliff was absolutely delighted because he actually started singing in falsetto on a lot of tracks after that. So that we have Bruce to thank for that as well. So I'm Nearly Famous, the next Cliff Bruce moment. So yeah, the I'm Nearly Famous album was followed by Every Face Tells a Story, then Green Light, and he also produced this fantastic album for Cliff and the Shadows with the reunion tour in 1978. And some of the highlights on this, My Kind of Life and When Two Worlds Drift Apart, is a very underrated song. But one of my favourite songs, and the name of this YouTube channel, Hey Mr. Dreammaker. Absolutely love that track, and Bruce wrote that as well. He wrote that with Alan Tarney. Absolutely fantastic track. Yeah, just another fantastic album as well. The Green Light album is just fantastic as well. Features one of my favourite album tracks by Cliff, Under Lock and Key. And yeah, this another great produced album by Bruce. And then of course the reunion concert in 1978, Bruce produced the album. And yes, this is just incredible. I used to play this to death. I had this on vinyl when I was a kid and absolutely loved it. And yeah, still love it today. So that's my next Cliff moment, and that has to follow 1979. Cliff had his biggest number one of all time, biggest single of all time, We Don't Talk Anymore, which was on this album that Bruce did not produce. Apparently, Bruce was walking through, I think it was EMI Studios, or EMI, the building, and he ran into an engineer, and the engineer said, see you in Paris next week, and Bruce hadn't got a clue what he was talking about. And apparently Cliff had booked a studio in Paris to record his next album, which was this album, Rock and Roll Juvenile, with Terry Britton, and didn't include Bruce. Bruce had no idea. Bruce was after producing pretty much Cliff's comeback albums. But as I keep on saying on these profiles, Cliff is a little bit ruthless when it comes to his music, and that's why he's so successful. He decided to go another direction and produce this album himself with Terry Britton. Absolutely fantastic album. But while they were recording in Paris, into the studio walks Bruce Welch and Alan Tarney. Alan had just written a fantastic track called We Don't Talk Anymore, and Bruce Welch wanted to present it to Cliff and tell him he wanted to produce it. Cliff said, yes, no problem, absolutely fantastic, I'll do it on my next album. And Bruce said, no way, it's going on this album, this song has to come out now, it's so fantastic. And once again, Bruce got his own way. Cliff recorded it, it went on this album, and it sold 5 million copies. Cliff's biggest single of all time, and thanks to Bruce Welch again. So, over the next couple of years, or the next decade, Bruce the Shadows were taken off again in the 80s, and he obviously Cliff went in different directions with different producers, but every now and again Bruce Welch would step in. Cliff always wanted to do albums with various producers. He was saying, we have all these different songwriters on the albums. Why can't we have different producers? So Cliff was the kind of pioneer in doing that first. I know everybody does it now, but it was unheard of for a singer to work with more than one producer. Now everybody does it, but Cliff was a kind of pioneer. But every now and again, Bruce Welch would pop up on the Cliff album, including this one, which he produced. Fantastic single, Baby You're Dynamite. Absolutely love that. That was produced by Bruce. And on this fantastic album, Bruce found a fantastic track called Little Mistreater, and he produced that for Cliff as well. I think he produced one other track on the album as well. Which one did he? I Need Love. Absolutely fantastic song as well. Yeah, so he was still producing for Cliff every now and again. So that's pretty much all my Cliff and Bruce Welch moments in Cliff's greatest. I think he contributed so much to Cliff's career, and I just wanted to give a shout out to them moments. And just to remind you that he actually wrote more number ones for Cliff than anybody else. If you take into account Please Don't Tease, I Love You, Summer Holiday, and Bachelor Boy. Nobody has written any more than one number one for Cliff. Bruce Welch has wrote 4. And absolutely fantastic. And if you include his production of We Don't Talk Anymore, that's 5. And if you include his arrangement of Living Doll, that's 6. So yeah, Bruce Welch has contributed so much to Cliff's career. So I want to thank Bruce for doing so much for Cliff's and giving us so much music, so much fantastic Cliff music. And so this was just for fun. And I want to give a shout out to this that's coming out on CD on April the 19th. Everybody, don't forget that. It's coming out on April the 19th. The CD of this absolutely legendary concert. Absolutely fantastic. The greatest concert I've ever been to in my life. I'm sure it's a lot of people would say that. And it's out on the 19th of April. And so just this was for fun, and just because I'm on such a buzz before I got a phone call off Bruce Welch, so I'm still on a buzz, and this was just for fun. So if you have any comments, leave them in the section below. If not, thank you and bye.